Right, so I'm just going to talk about a very quick video on starting a new Unity project. I'm not going to go through a massive explanation of what all these different sections are, but remember that in essence, it doesn't actually matter. This is about sort of like what default things are set up and what's already been defined. You could change any of these things ever. And I think this is quite confusing because I have students talk to me about 2D and 3D in Unity, but in reality, 2D and 3D are very similar. I mean, everything is sort of 3D really in Unity in essence that it's a 3D world, just, even 2D is, but so if I start a 2D project, let's just call it my project 2D, um, and then create it, and then I'll open it. Why is it not opening? Because it hasn't finished creating. Might make sense to wait. It's creating on another screen, which I'll obviously cut out, so I'll pause the video and wait. Okay, so it's finally created it, and here is the blank scene there. I can press play, and we can see the very unexciting game. Well, look at that, that's wonderfully exciting. But even though it's 2D, see, try to explain to people, it's 2D, this is a 2D game. It really isn't, because I can easily set up a cube. I've still got a camera, and if I play the game, it's in essence, it's just settings of the camera. There you go. If I move the cube over a bit, let's move it here. Might be off the screen, but we'll try. You'll see that it moves over. If I were to rotate the object, it would still, look 3D. Let's rotate it on the Y, and there you go, etc., etc. I might want to add a light source, directional light. Otherwise, it would look very interesting. And I rotate it, but yeah, there you go. You can see that. There's a cube, and it's still 3D. And in essence, that a 2D game in Unity is just 3D on a flat plane. The only main difference is the type of camera gets set something called orthographic. Now, the best way to explain it is by demonstration, really. So if I put that there, let's play. So we've got that two cubes. Let's actually rotate them both a little bit. Actually, no, it's not. So, and you can see at the moment I'm in orthographic. If I change the perspective, now you can imagine that I'm actually seeing what would be in real life. Like in real life, if I put two cubes sort of in your peripheral vision and you looked down the middle, you would see the edges of the cube. That's a more normal, generically what you would normally use for 3D, like sort of first-person games. Although you can obviously use orthographic if you're doing a sort of flat plane 3D. I made a game of Tetris once, not in Unity. This was a long time ago. I just coded it in DirectX. But that used an orthographic camera because I didn't want you to see the side of the squares of the Tetris blocks. But I wanted the game to be 3D, like when you paused, the whole game span around and you could see the blocks and then they've shattered and they were 3D cubes. But orthographic means you're kind of like looking straight at it all the time. Whereas obviously perspective, you have this element of perspective as you're going around. So that's the main things. These are the sort of things that would be set differently between the 2D and the 3D modes when you begin a project. And it would have different assets if you start a project in 3D. In fact, I could just quickly close this and then start one in 3D, and I'll come back in a second. And there you are. So back here now, and this is a 3D blank game, basically. And as you can see, it's just the main camera has been set to perspective, as I said before, and they've already got in a directional light in. And of course, you could put a plane in. Let's go 100. Oop, not that. What am I doing? Why? It's going to be nothing. Go. Put the main camera a bit higher. Maybe put it down a bit. See, this makes it plainer. I could give it a different material, but I don't really have anything loaded in. But anyway, the point is, there you go. I mean, that's it. You can see the 3D one. You could put a capsule collider in, object, capsule, player controller on it, which I could, import, and then we could run around on a plane and all that sort of stuff. But we'll go into that in later videos and so on and so forth. I might do some sort of third-person shooter or something. I don't know, but you'll be a capsule or some sort of robot I download off the asset store. So anyway, so that's basically how to create a project. There are others. If I go out of here, I'll leave it open actually because I'll probably use that one in my rest of my tutorials. You've got one here called the Universal Render Pipeline, and it's a different way of sort of lighting really and rendering the project. It is quite good, but a lot of the assets that I've purchased don't work with it, so I don't use it really very often. Obviously, you've got ones for Divine for mobile. That's just going to have like cut down settings, so like less and things, so that it's more quicker performance wise. Probably lower. They're basically settings that you could change anyway, and you still want to change. Same as VR and all the others. I've never really used augmented reality, so I've no idea what it like does when you load that. I've never actually used VR either. I'm being honest on Unity. And obviously, you could load the sample scene up and actually have a look at some stuff. It is quite cool. The high definition render pipeline is really used for like photorealistic images, things like that. I've never seen this one before. Create edit movies. I mean, I've never used that. It's not something I'd do, but cool enough. But anyway, really, these are the two main ones you're going to use, unless you're doing mobile. In case you might do these, but even to be honest, when I did mobile stuff, I'd still just use these and change settings myself because that's what you do. So, might want to start yourself a 3D project up and then get ready for video 2.